All right. Hey, YTH, can you stay standing? Can you stay standing? Don't sit down. Stay standing. Stay standing. I want to start our time in the Word together by reading, as we stand, a verse that many of you probably have memorized. If you could turn your attention to the screen, we're going to say the Lord's Prayer together. All right? You ready? Up there? All right. Can everyone see that? If you've never heard it before, you can read it. I'm going to wait for it to be quiet, and then we're going to go. All right, in Matthew, the Lord, teaching his disciples to pray, gives this instruction. He says, pray like this: Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Fantastic. You guys can have a seat. Thank you. I did notice there that there was some trip up around the yellow words, because some of us grew up with the old King Jamesy Bible, and we use words like trespasses, and other people use words like debtors, but yeah, you made it eventually. Oh, this is fun. This is like that game you play. Oh, this gives me so much stress where you're trying to park all the cars. Have you ever played that app game where you're trying to park the cars and it's like Tetris, but it involves cars, and that makes it more stressful for some reason. So, front row. How's the front row doing? Good. That guy's such a champ. He's going all the way to the back. What a guy. What a guy. Well, hey, YTH, my name's Dan. I've been up here before, so I'm not going to introduce myself. Nope, we're good. We're good. Jesus is great. And we get to spend the next 22 minutes, as I look at the clock, together with Jesus and his word. Specifically the words we just read together. Some of the words that were taught to us as children. Some of the words that you just kind of, when you think of a Christian, some of these times these words, like this is what comes to mind. Specifically, this is a great prayer, by the way. It's a great prayer. Specifically, though, there's a part in this prayer that scares me. Can you guess what it is? It's the yellow part. Forgive us as we have forgiven. And tonight, that's our topic. Forgiveness. It is so hard. Forgiveness is so hard. We live in a world where forgiveness is so strange. It's so unexpected that when it does happen, it blows the socks off the newsreel. It is shocking. That's a little sad. Forgiveness is so shocking. There's an interesting story that I want to open by showing with you guys. I'm not as good a storyteller as Spencer, so I'm just going to play some clips from the YouTube. And but guys, get this. I'm going to give you some context for this story. It's a ridiculous story. It's a shocking story because it involves one of the most ridiculous people on the internet, a guy named Logan Paul. Yeah. Okay, bear with me. We're going to connect Logan Paul to Jesus. Okay, it's going to happen, all right? Context. If you don't know who this goon is, and we love Logan Paul, I have no animosity against him. He's a boxer, obviously. He's also like an influencer. He's got a podcast. He's got a YouTube channel. He makes millions of dollars being like a frat boy for the rest of his life. Look, he's this obnoxious kind of tough guy personality, but he's also a boxer, okay? He's also hostile to Jesus. In fact, if you go on YouTube and you type in Logan Paul Jesus, you're probably not going to find the clip I'm going to show you first. You're going to find a bunch of other clips of him arguing, of him yelling with people, and some people yelling with him, honestly, about the topic of faith. He's not what we would call a Christian in any sense of the word. But he is a boxer. Okay, so he's a fighter. He's a tough guy. Boxing context. There was a fight in October. This is pretty recent. It's pretty cool that this happened. And he went up against this guy named, let me get this right, Dylan Dennis. If you don't know the context for this fight, before the fight, people like to pay to watch the fight. It's good TV. And so what they do is they don't just film the fight. They film like the week before the fight, a press conference where they get the two fighters together. And they like just try to just like, I mean, it's like watching like housewives that just like tear each other apart. Like they just talk trash and they insult each other. And normally like someone throws a water bottle and it gets heated, okay? So there's this press conference where Logan is going to talk with this guy, and they're talking trash, and it gets pretty heated. Now here's the deal. This guy, Dylan Dennis, took a different strategy to get into Logan Paul's head. He didn't attack him directly. He didn't taunt him directly verbally. But Logan Paul at the time, and I think he still is, engaged to a model named Nina Agdel. And what his opponent... We're going to pray for you later. Hey. No, this guy's opponent, Dylan, he looked up Logan's fiance, went on the internet and started using his Twitter account. This is the opponent here. He used his Twitter account to post nude photos of Logan's fiance, mostly photoshopped. He would put things on Twitter saying like, dude, Logan, look at this girl. You better call off the wedding now, bro. Like, he taunted Logan by attacking the woman he loves most in this world. Can you feel that kind of tension? Can you feel that? Especially the guys in the room here. Especially the big, tough, righteous guys. You could feel that if someone came after your girl, you would feel heated. You would physically probably get warm. There might be a vein bulging out of your head. Ethan Clark has one that scares me sometimes. And come on, you know what I'm talking about. Logan got messed up by this. He'll admit, this guy got in his head. He attacked his girl. It got in his head. And this guy just went on and on. They ended up having to file lawsuits on harassment. It hurt their business. It hurt their reputation. And it really made their life a living hell. And so fight night comes. Two boxers get in the ring together. And before they put the mouth guards in, they say some final words before they're going to knock each other's teeth out. And if you look at Logan, he says, they're not mic'd up or anything, but he says these words. He says, I forgive you, Dylan. I forgive you. And they put the mouth guard in and they fight. Forgive you. Logan did end up winning. It was kind of a crazy fight. But I want to show you guys, because people kind of caught on to that, because that's weird. Logan Paul, frat boy humor, goofball, tough guy. I forgive you. Was he playing mind games? Was it fake? Was it just trying to get attention or get into that guy's head? Was it psychological warfare? I don't know. So on his podcast, Logan kind of opened up a little bit about where that idea of I forgive you, Dylan, came from. And we can play that clip. You can check it out on the screen.
You're in a fight. You said, I forgive you, Dylan. That was hard. Well, did you mean that? It's inhumane what he did. How could any person watch what he did to the person you love most in the world and be okay with it, and not want to actually murder this human being? Me and Nina sat right over there. We had a meditation, and in this meditation, I'm sitting here, how can I go into this as calm as possible and not want to fight with emotion? And this word kept coming to my mind: forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. And then, y'all are gonna laugh at me. The internet's gonna laugh at me, bro. Jesus came into my mind. Jesus. The man was massive. Forgiveness, the power of forgiveness. A whole religion was built on the power of forgiveness. The amount of followers he has because of this one principle that if you can grasp it, I forgive you, bro. I forgive you for making my life out. I forgive you for hurting the person I love most in this world for months on end, and she's done nothing to you. But I knew that if I could do it, and I knew that if I meant that I actually forgave him, I could enter this fight with a calm mind and just box.
That's kind of shocking, right? Logan Paul preaching at you tonight. Didn't expect that one. Look, guys, here's the deal. To be honest, called it a meditation. But he said that he saw Jesus. And that moved him to do something that he also said in his own words was so hard. He says it. He admits it. He admits that the guy was in his head. He admits that it was hard. And I think Logan here is just scratching the surface. But I do think he's right that forgiveness, yeah, it is hard. It is not natural to forgive someone. People recognize this and even preach forgiveness as a thing that makes you feel good about yourself. It's a good life principle. Science and psychology even say that forgiveness is good for you. Forgiving people live longer. Forgiving people, this is a funny one I found out. Forgiving people, I got this from another pastor named Ben Stewart, who's hilarious. He said forgiving people, they did a study, okay? And they had people jump and they measured their vertical. And forgiving people jump 6 centimeters higher on average. So if you're trying to dunk and you're in that basketball tournament, you just need to forgive, okay? That might be the final barrier just to get over the rim. We live in a culture that recognizes forgiveness is good for us. Forgiveness is good for us. That same culture, this is crazy, that is obsessed with canceling people and saying, you are so bad. You are so bad. You are less than a human, and we're going to cancel you. We're going to shut you out. You're less than human. That same culture still sees forgiveness as honorable, as something to strive for at the end of the day. And man, in my life, I love the idea of forgiveness. But the second someone threatens the security of me or my family, unforgiveness tastes so good. It does, right? Okay, funny example. One of you goons threw a snowball at my wife's face this morning. Yeah. And when my wife told me, we were just leaving Jordan Burnet's excellent message on praying your heart, and I had to go pray to God about the anger in my heart because I wanted to find that punk and throw him in a snowbank and then just cover it in like that igloo and just sit on it. Now, that's not going to happen. We had to pray. Because, guys, forgiveness is great, but then your wife gets hit with a snowball and unforgiveness tastes so good. A couple months ago, this is just so weird. I'm having the worst luck with like credit card fraud. I don't know. It's just crazy. No. I opened up my phone and I noticed like, hey, I talked to my wife and we have nicknames. I call her Sunshine. So I go, hey, Sunshine. I'm missing $500. And I looked at you pull up like the transaction history, and I noticed like, okay, there was like some gas bills, there was like taking some students out for coffee, there was like some coffee, some pizza, youth pastor diet, and then there was like a $48 charge at a Dairy Queen in Portland, Oregon. And then there was like another $48 charge at a Portland Dairy Queen. And there was like 8 $50 charges to a Dairy Queen in Portland where someone had taken my credit card and just loaded up on Dairy Queen. I don't know what. And I saw that and immediately, forgiveness sounds great. But in the moment, unforgiveness. I get my money back. I'm going to call up Chase Bank. And what kind of tone do you think I'm going to take with the customer service rep who was unfortunate enough to have me? Angry. Not good. Unforgiveness tastes so good. How about when my wife, who's an incredible mother, full-time teacher, you can applaud for that. She's awesome. She comes home after working and shares about someone at work who lied and made her look bad to her boss. You know, forgiveness is great, but unforgiveness tastes so good. You feel targeted at work, at home, your family doesn't understand. A close friend betrays you and stirs up drama. Yeah, forgiveness is great, but unforgiveness right now tastes so good. I want to hold on to this. We're going to fix it. We're going to get justice. We're going to make things right, or we're going to run from it. And man, just like an old famous TV psychiatrist used to say, how's that working for you? Not good. But forgiveness is hard. Forgiveness is not natural. And if you want to see God move in your life, if you want to see a miracle, praying for the miracle, praying for the supernatural, come on, God, do something. If we experience what Jesus really offers us fully and purely, you need to look at the heart of the gospel, and there you will see forgiveness. More than a useful tool, way more than a life principle. Forgiveness is at the heart of who Jesus is and what he does. Because forgiveness, yes, it is not natural to any of us. But I'm here to tell you that the story I read from these pages, the story my God tells me is that it is possible, but forgiveness is supernatural. Forgiveness is supernatural. If you got your Bibles, will you open with me to Matthew 6, and you'll find the Lord's Prayer. We'll be hanging out. I've always I heard this once from another pastor, and I'm going to steal it. His name's Andy Stanley. He's great. But he was talking about the Lord's Prayer once, and I don't know, it stuck with me. The context for this is Jesus is hanging with his 12 disciples and doing some miracles and some awesome teaching. And at some point, I don't know what they were exactly thinking, but they asked him to teach him how to pray. Like, I'm thinking like they were praying already, but then they looked over at Jesus praying, and they were like, hey, Jesus, this is how we pray, and this is how you pray, and it's not the same. Can you show us how you're praying? Because we want to pray like you're praying, okay? And Jesus says, great, pray then like this. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I told you guys that this yellow part here about forgiveness scares me, because there's a connection here between what seems to be my personal forgiveness and my ability to forgive others. And that scares me because I know how hard forgiveness can be. So I ask myself, why the connection between our debts and our debtors? Why the connection? Well, why did Jesus come? Why did God himself come to earth? I'm going to tell you, it was forgiveness. To live the good life we couldn't live and die the death we all deserve. And then turn around and say, you're forgiven. I got this. Your screw-ups, your sin, you're forgiven. I took care of it. You're forgiven. That's it. That's the gospel. It's all about the person and work of Jesus. And what he accomplished was nothing short of supernatural forgiveness. So now I'm reading that, and then the connection here, I want to make this clear, that the connection here between receiving forgiveness and then forgiving others, I told you it scares me because maybe you read this and you know Jesus, and then you read something like this, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I just go to the worst case scenario, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I just broke the Bible, and I think I just found out, I know God saves me by grace, but I think I just found a stipulation here. There's like an asterisk where it says like, yeah, you're saved by grace, but you also need to forgive or you're going to hell, okay? And I think I broke the Bible. And guess what? I didn't, because people have asked questions before, and you can ask them too. In the context here, Jesus is giving them a prayer, not a one-time deal prayer, but a way to pray every day, all the time, multiple times a day. This isn't the come to Jesus. This isn't that one first moment where you surrender yourself to the Lord. This is a daily trust, a daily prayer for forgiveness. It is not saying, well, Dan, you didn't forgive Jordan Burnage for, actually can't think of anything. He's the nicest guy in the world. But it's not saying that, because if that were true, that would mean that we could earn our salvation. It means that you could forgive your way into heaven. You can't forgive your way into heaven. We all struggle with this. We are not saved based on our own ability to forgive. We're saved alone by the person and work of Jesus. So this is not talking about your salvation. So what is it talking about? This is where it gets real for us. It is talking about your personal fellowship with God right now. Your connection with God right now. Your personal closeness with God is connected with forgiveness. Both ways. Both ways. So you cannot hold on to unforgiveness and the gospel at the same time. And that's what scares me. Because I know in my life where I hold on to unforgiveness, and I know in your life, you're starting to think, things are starting to come to mind where you're holding on to unforgiveness. You cannot experience unforgiveness and the gospel in the same moment. Forgiveness is supernatural. And now, forgiveness is super hard. And I think sometimes we read these big, bold words of Jesus who's saying, like, you got to forgive people. It's a command. It's not optional. And then we just think, well, maybe he wasn't talking about me. Maybe Jesus, because, Jesus doesn't know my situation. He lived 2,000 years ago. He doesn't know the drama I've been through, the trauma I'm experiencing. Jesus doesn't know my situation. But not only did Jesus start his work talking about forgiveness, this is like a bold claim at the beginning of his ministry. Some of Jesus' last words as he was unfairly nailed to a tree, tortured, and executed were these words. Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Father, forgive them. He went through it, guys. He went through, honestly, worse than you probably will. His family deserted him. His friends deserted him. The physical torment. And it wasn't just. He was crucified based on like a sham trial. The Jewish people didn't like that he was claiming to be God, and he was claiming to be God. Don't forget that. And so they took him to trial and said, like, hey, this guy's pretending to be a king, so we're going to get the Romans to kill him because they don't want another king. And the Romans were like, fine. And Jesus was executed unfairly. Emotional, physical, psychological, even spiritual trauma at one point He feels separated from God. That's incredible. I don't understand that fully. But he has felt what you have felt. He has been through what you have been through. That makes our God so good. And still in the end, again, some of his final words were these. Say the yellow ones with me. And Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Thanks for finishing with me. I'm going to share with you guys a quote by a very old Christian man. He's not my favorite old Christian man, but he's all right. And he wrote a good book, though. It was called The Power and Freedom of Forgiveness. This is John MacArthur. It's pretty good. He said, do you see the glory of that moment on the cross? Jesus says, forgive them. Although Christ is the sovereign, eternal, omnipotent, that means all-powerful, guys. He did not threaten. He did not condemn. He did not pronounce doom on his crucifiers. Instead of lashing out against them, he prayed for them. He prayed for them. Jesus had earlier taught, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. But who would have thought that teaching would be carried to such an extreme? He didn't just teach it, guys. He lived it. Lived it beautifully, perfectly, sometimes confusingly. But he shows us what forgiveness really is. And I think that's part of the problem. We don't have time to go into super in-depth on this, but I think part of the problem of why we hold on to unforgiveness is we don't know what forgiveness is. And I just want us tonight to allow the Bible to define forgiveness for us. Because sometimes we think forgiveness means forgetting. No, it doesn't. There's no Men in Black, mind erase technology out there to make you forget the hurt you've been through. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is not excusing. We worship a God of justice. He's not going to excuse the guilty. Forgiveness is not a feeling. In fact, what I mean by it's not a feeling is that if we can get the verse back up there, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of Greek. I'm going to nerd out with you for a moment. And I'm going to mispronounce this. It's going to be hilarious. The Greek word for forgive, it's not a noun, okay? It's a verb. It's an action. It's this word up here. It says aphaimi. Oh, I did that so badly. Kyle Roberts, forgive me. Aphaimi. And it's a verb that means to send away, to cast off, to release, to no longer carry. The word forgive in the Bible means to release. It's not forgetting. It's not excusing. It's not a feeling. It's to send away and to no longer hold on to it. And this is where we get into the supernatural aspect, because the world, again, likes forgiveness, but they have nowhere to send their unforgiveness to. The universe? Yourself? I mean, like, just a generic higher, like, who are you sending your unforgiveness to? Who's going to deal with this? Who's big enough to carry this burden? Who loves you enough and knows what you're going through? Yeah. But without him, it's not possible. Like, it's just like throwing those snowballs up in the raft and they're just like falling back down. There's no one there to catch it. It's crazy. Forgiveness is not natural. It's supernatural. And we are blessed because of Jesus to have someone to send that forgiveness, send that burden up to. Forgiveness is an act of faith in God that leads to freedom and power. You were saying, God, this is too big for me, so I'm sending it up to you because I need your help. And I trust that you're just God. And I trust that you're going to deal with this even better than I ever could. And everything inside us fights against that. Not only inside us, but around us. If forgiveness is at the core of Jesus' gospel, then the spiritual evil forces of this world are doing everything they can to prevent you from doing that. Everything. 2 Corinthians 2:10-12, I'll put it up on the screen. It says, anyone you forgive, I also forgive. This is obviously like God talking. And what I have forgiven, if there was anything to forgive, I have forgiven in the sight of Christ for your sake. So Paul's saying, hey, because of Jesus, you can go forgive people now. Not because of you, not because of them, because of Jesus. And then he says this, verse 11. In order that Satan might not outwit us, for we are not unaware of his schemes. This is a clue that one of the devil's main strategies in keeping us stuck in our mess, one of his main strategies is unforgiveness. Unforgiveness. I'm going to bring it back to boxing for a moment because that was just the random theme of this sermon. Okay, a friend showed me this. That friend's name is Jordan Burnage. He's my friend. And this is an interview between Mike Tyson, the retired famous boxer. He does have a lisp. Don't laugh. It's a video. And Saquon Barkley from the Giants. Anyone here? Giants fans? I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan, so we can be out here. Anyway, I want you to watch this video. There's an interview where Mike Tyson is talking with Saquon, and Saquon's going to go on and talk about he's coming back from an injury. Some people let him down, and hear how Saquon wants to respond to the people who let him down. Go ahead and play it.
Not your enemy, he's your master. Because you're not who you used to be now. He stole that away from you. What do you allow him to? You can't do it on my own. That's hard though, man. Once you know, you think you're great now. What's that great you gonna be when you learn compassion and empathy?
That's pretty good. So, just to recap there. Saquon Barkley says, if someone wrongs me, crosses the line, they're out of my life. That's our natural instinct. Tyson says, then the devil wins. Because he's changed you. He's stolen something from you, and you let him do it at least. Ephesians 4:31 says, this is written to Christians. It's like an encouragement, a command. It says, get rid of all bitterness, rage and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Hebrews 12:15 says, see to it that no one falls short of the grace of God and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. Acts 8:23, I think this makes it the clearest. For I see that you are full of bitterness and captive to sin. There's a scary connection there between bitterness, unforgiveness, and our own spiritual walk with the Lord. It's weird to think that my struggle with sin could be tied to unforgiveness of someone else, how they hurt me. That's weird to think of. But if I'm not willing to forgive and trust God with this, if I'm not willing to forgive, then maybe I've gotten my eyes off the gospel, eyes off of Jesus and his awesome hope. I wish I could say I was the best example of this. But I'm honestly someone who in life, I've probably hurt more than been hurt. And really the best example I could think of, another fun theme for the weekend, we're going to talk about dads, is my dad. I got a picture of him. Okay, so this is me, and I'm holding little Dan, and this guy we call Big Dan, okay? Little Dan, Big Dan. Little Dan. Big, like, we're related, but you can tell that these two guys are built differently, right? Like his arm, it's like a tree trunk, okay? So we call him Big Dan. We share the same name, some other personality stuff, but he's got about 100 pounds on me, okay? He's one of the strongest men that I know. But he's also a great businessman. He's a family man and man of God. He's been through the ringer, though. And I played a small part in that. When I say I'm someone who's hurt more than been hurt, probably, I'm referring to the 5 to 6 years I spent drinking and getting high as much and as often as I could because I believed I needed that to get by. And I don't just mean partied in college or rebellious teenager. I mean, I was one of those people who just can't stop, who couldn't get enough. I took my first drink when I was 15 at a party, and it turned a shy, insecure, awkward late bloomer into a confident, funny kid who's comfortable in his own skin. Did you get that? Drinking did something for me, and I thought it was good. That's how addiction works. It did something for me, and I thought it was good. So if drinking was good, then smoking weed and drinking was better, because that's how my brain works. And if drinking and smoking weed was good, then let's throw in a cocktail hallucinogenics, because that's going to be better. And then, if I get caught, if I fail at school, if I get fired, rejected by a girl, I could not maintain a relationship during these years. If any of that stuff happened and I started to feel uncomfortable or bitter inside, let's go do more. A lot of the ways I look back at my addiction cycle, there's a lot of bitterness in there. A big step in, and Jesus helped me to get sober, was going through that. But I was stuck in it for years, and that's just, anyway, I don't need to rehash my story. I actually want to talk more about what my parents saw during this time. Big Dan, and my mom's name is Betsy. What my parents saw was their clean-cut, straight-A, church-going son transform into a lying, stealing, and just flat-out, just dangerous person to be around. Like, I couldn't go home, guys. My parents, out of love and to protect my younger siblings, said, you cannot be on our property. I was their son. But they had to do that for the safety of my younger siblings. They never stopped loving me, and they were ready to always give me multiple chances to come home and stop sleeping in my car outside the Walmart or other people's couches. But if I came home, I had to promise for the safety of my siblings that I was clean and everything on me. And my life was so chaotic at that time. I'd given up on school a while ago. I'd been fired like multiple times for showing up high or not at all. And every time I hit rock bottom, or what I thought it was rock bottom, but man, I found out there's always a deeper bottom. I would come home, and I would come home teary-eyed, exhausted. Mom and Dad, I'd say, I'm done. This is it. I'm getting clean. Yeah, I'll go to the meetings. I'll meet with the pastor, Jimmy, at the coffee shop. I'll do it. I'm done. I'm clean. There's nothing on me. You can search my car. Don't worry about it. Like, I'm clean. I got this, okay? We can do this. I'm clean. And they let me back home. Maybe a week or two would go by. And I'd be calling up my old contacts, relapse, and start the lying and the hiding and the stealing again and again and again. It was probably the fourth time I'd done this, that cycle. I was back home for a few days, clean. Going through some withdrawals, freaking out a little bit, but clean. I was sleeping in the same bed I grew up in. Same bed my parents tucked me into at night, read me Jesus Bible stories. Obviously, it didn't really click at the time. But I'm back home, at least. But to be honest, guys, the night before, I'd just gone out and gotten high again. And I woke up that morning to a knock on my door from Big Dan, who burst into the room because he knew. I still don't know how, but he knew. I don't know what I left. But again, my life was chaotic and I was an idiot, but he knew. And my dad told me to get out. And I tried. He says, get out. I go back to my bag of tricks. I'm going to mutter some lies, but he just wasn't having it anymore. And he grabbed me by the shoulder, and he put me up against the wall because he's Big Dan. And with tears streaming down his face, guys, I cannot get this image out of my head. He said, stop lying. Just stop. Because I was killing him inside. He said, stop lying. Every lie out of your mouth is like you're crapping down my throat. He's crying. This big, strong man, this successful businessman, this family man was broken. And in that moment, something broke in me a little bit too. I don't know why seeing my dad like that, it gave me like a moment of like guilt or clarity. But it was that moment with my dad that gave me the strength to go to another drug rehab in Prescott. And it was at that rehab that I completely and fully surrendered my life to Jesus for the first time. It was incredible. And it was there the Holy Spirit came in my life and gave me something better than all the crap I was doing before. Gave me forgiveness, gave me a new energy, a new hope, new friends. It's just incredible. God is so good. It's crazy. And we sing that song, Nothing is better than you. Do you remember that? Nothing is better than you. For me, when I sing that song, guys, I've tested and seen. Nothing is better than Jesus. But that's my perspective again. Let's go back to my family. I hadn't seen him in 2 months. I'm in Prescott. I'm going to some counseling, going to some AA. Walking with the Lord for the first time. It's incredible. But what about my family? What about my dad? So I'm living up there in rehab, and they don't really allow family visits because they're protecting the family and stuff. And I was sober and free for the first time, but I hadn't seen him in a couple months, and Christmas was coming up, and it's just kind of a bummer. Like, I felt like, man, I was heaping on the guilt. Like, yeah, I deserved it. Like, I knew the crap. I was starting to process, and like I was kind of coming out of like a fog and like a haze, and like realized like, honestly realized the scumbag I've been. But Christmas Day came, and I was super surprised to walk out of the motel room door, Cascade Motel in Prescott where we stayed, and see my dad's Suburban there. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he was talking with the house manager at the rehab, and he was getting permission to take me out for the day in Prescott. I couldn't leave Prescott. And in the car, it wasn't just him. It was my mom. It was my brother. It was my sister. And I get kind of teary thinking about it because, man, I love Christmas. And we just had it. It was awesome. But, man, this Christmas was special. I got to get in the car with my family I hadn't seen forever. And we went back to their hotel room. They packed up the car, even brought the dogs, our 2 giant labs, into this hotel room. And they brought a tree, and they decorated it. And they put Christmas lights up. And they even had some gifts for me. And I'm there just smiling, and just enjoying it. But deep down inside, guys, I didn't get it. The last time I saw them, I had just stolen my sister's pain medication she needed for her surgery on her freaking skull because I needed to get my opiate fix. Last time I saw my dad, he had been pinned up against the wall, tears in his eyes. Last time I saw my brother, he was finding a glass pipe in his brother's backpack they left out. And we were at Christmas again. It was awesome, but it was weird. I got in the car that night to go back to the rehab because I wasn't leaving or anything. Still had some work to do. And I get out of the car, and it's a little bit of a walk. And I'll never forget this. I'm walking back to the car, and it's just me and my dad. The family was back at the hotel room. And I just turn around to my dad, and I just, for the first time, honestly say, I'm sorry. Dad, I'm so sorry. And I just say, they start spilling out, Dad, I lied to you guys. I can't believe you and Mom are still together. I know things were shaky there. I know it caused a part, but I can't believe, you come up here for Christmas too? What? Dad, I'm so sorry. Will you please forgive me? And Big Dan put his arms on my shoulder again, but gently, and said these words, I forgave you a while ago. He didn't forgive me because I got sober. There's actually a lot more going on inside he and my mom's life, outside of me. They look back on that season of life where their clean-cut son went off the rails and screwed them over a dozen different ways. They lost the family business and filed bankruptcy same year. My mom's parents who lived with us died that year. What a year, guys. Sister had a concussion. Brother broke his femur, and son's in rehab, lying to them. What a year. And they look back on this time, and they still to this day say that is the closest they have ever felt with the Lord. Because they didn't just play the victim card. They were done trying to just fix it themselves. They ran to the church. They ran to prayer groups. They really reconnected with Jesus, and they were praying. They were praying prayers of forgiveness, saying, we forgive Danny. God, help us forgive Danny. We turn him over to you. God, we forgive these people who screwed us over with the business deal. God, we turn them over to you. They learned so much, and they credit Jesus alone for it, teaching them how powerful and freeing forgiveness can be. Forgiveness is not natural. It is supernatural. It comes from the God of forgiveness. It helps us do the rest of the world thinks it's crazy. Guys, I'm going to close here with a story, and I'm going to invite the band back up. But please don't rustle around, please. I'm just begging you, please. Personally, don't chatter even as the band comes up. Because this story is pretty sweet. I want to make something super crystal clear here. This isn't just something that happens to me. This isn't just something that happened to my family or Big Dan. This isn't exclusive. This is for all of us. All of us who need it. All of us who can go to Jesus. All of us who don't know what it looks like to forgive or feel like we can't right now. You want an example of incredible evil and hurt in the world and the power of forgiveness? I'm going to take you back to World War II. Corrie ten Boom. If you know who she is, great. If not, here's the crash course in history. Corrie and her family hid Jewish people from the Nazis until they were betrayed by a friend during World War II. They were betrayed and sent to a concentration camp for trying to save innocent lives. Corrie And I think I have a photo of that. And her sister, Betsy, they were tortured in a place called Ravensbrück Camp. It's just a scary name, but guys, this is so much more real and scary than we can imagine. Corey remembers seeing her sister die right in front of her in the showers. But I mean like the gas chambers. Corey remembers the guards that tormented them and abused them and spat on them. And Corey did survive World War II, and afterwards dedicated her whole life to helping people who had survived Auschwitz and Ravensbrück and all these kinds of places recover. And even once in a while, this is incredible, she began traveling back into Germany just to speak and to share the gospel to the very people and country that made her life hell. And at one of these events, Corey was sharing about the God who forgives all sins. And she recognized a man in the crowd. She recognized one of the guards that worked at the camp where her sister died. The very same man who was part of the torture she received and the death she saw was sitting in an audience, and she's preaching about the forgiveness of Jesus. After speaking, the man came forward. And Corey, I don't know, she's probably freaking out. She sees him, she recognizes him. And the man, the German man, it says in her autobiography that he extended his hand, and in a German accent, which is kind of creepy, he said, "A fine message, Fraulein. How good is it to know that, as you say, all our sins are at the bottom of the sea." And I'm just going to read this. So this is Corey saying, "And I, who had spoken so glibly of forgiveness, fumbled in my pocketbook rather than take that hand. He would not remember me, of course. How could he remember one prisoner among those thousands of women? But I remembered him and the leather crop swinging from his belt that they would beat us with. It was the first time since my release that I had been face to face with one of my captors, and my blood seemed to freeze." You mentioned Ravensbrück in your talk, he was saying. I was a guard there. So this guy didn't remember Corey. But he's kind of like self-confessing to her. The guard went on to say, "But since that time, I've become a Christian. And I know God has forgiven me for the cruel things I did there. But I would like to hear it from your lips as well, Fraulein." And again, his hand came out. "Will you forgive me?" And Corey writes, she says, "I stood there, I whose sins had every day to be forgiven and could not. Betsy had died in that place. Could he erase her slow, terrible death simply by asking? It could not have been many seconds that he stood there, hand held out, but to me it seemed like hours as I wrestled with the most difficult thing I had ever had to do. For I had to do it. I knew that. The message that God forgives has a prior condition, that we forgive those who have injured us. If you do not forgive men their trespasses, Jesus says, neither will your Father in heaven forgive your trespasses." She knew that what was at stake was her relationship, her current relationship with God, her connection with God, her experience of Jesus. And as traumatizing as it would be to face her captor and forgive him, she weighed that against how good her God is. Not him, not her. Against how good her God is. And Corey says, "And still I stood there with coldness clutching my heart. But forgiveness is not an emotion." I knew that too. Forgiveness is an act of the will, and the will can function regardless of what the heart feels. "Jesus, help me," I prayed silently. "I can lift my hand, I can do that much, but you supply the feeling." I'm going to read that again. This is her prayer. "Jesus, help me. I can lift my hand robotically. I can do that much, but you got to supply the feeling." And so woodenly, mechanically, I thrust my hand into the one stretched out to me. And as I did, an incredible thing took place. The current started in my shoulder, raced down my arm, sprang into our joined hands, and then this healing warmth seemed to flood my whole being, bringing tears to my eyes. "I forgive you, brother," I cried, with all my heart. For a long moment, we grasped each other's hands, the former guard and the former prisoner. I had never known God's love so intensely as I did then. Forgiveness is supernatural. Jesus instructs us to pray, guys, every day, if not every hour and minute. Lord, forgive us as we forgive those who've hurt us, God. We got to keep forgiving. If you know Jesus, your salvation is not at stake, but maybe your current relationship with him is. Maybe your current struggle with sin is. Your freedom is, to be honest. I firmly believe that if you hold on to unforgiveness in your heart, you're going to stay stuck. You're going to have reasons to go back out there, reasons to look at that pornography, reasons to go hook up with your boyfriend, whatever it is, guys. Again, I've tried it all. We all know. There's nothing better than Jesus. And so if God is so good, no matter how traumatic, no matter how crazy this unforgiveness is, you weigh it against the goodness of God, and in faith, we stick out our hands and we say, Jesus, help us. Help us to forgive. We need you. This has to be you. About you, not us, not them. About you, Jesus. I want us to do that tonight, guys. As silently as you can. If you could stand with me as we pray. It's almost silently. What we're going to do here, I'm going to give very clear instructions for. And what I'm trying to do is just provide you the framework and the encouragement to say your own prayer, really. What I want you to do right now, just to get ready, is I want us all to close our eyes, just for focus. A lot of people around, I see a lot of people, just close your eyes. And if we could, like Corey faced with her tormentor, with that guard, if we could stick our hands in our pockets. And I want us for a moment, like Jordan guided us in this morning, I want us to be real with God about the hurt in our lives. The people in our lives who've betrayed us, the people we can't trust. Maybe it's bigger than people. Maybe it's just like culture at large. Maybe it's an idea. Mostly for us, it's going to be a name. It's going to be a family member. And what I want you to know right now, as you're feeling these emotions, is that tonight we're going to say this prayer, and man, we're here to walk alongside you. You might not just like get zapped with the warm fuzzies. That's fine. That's not how God works. But I just want you to be free. Free to look to Jesus. Free to start giving this burden to Jesus. Free to allow other people to walk alongside you with these burdens. Free to become a more forgiving person. And guys, what I want us to do now is, you can open your eyes if you need to. We're going to put the Lord's Prayer back up there. And we're going to pray it. And when we get to the part about forgiveness, if you're ready to forgive someone, I'm going to invite you as a sign of faith to just reach out your hand. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive those debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And what we're going to do now is, guys, I'm going to get you started, but I want you to finish this before we sing. I'm going to say, Jesus, just like Corey. Jesus, keep it simple. Help me forgive, and then blank. And then I'm not going to say blank. You're going to say the person who is God has put on your heart. You're going to say that name, that program, whatever it is, and you are going to pray with everything we have to the God who forgives to help you do something you cannot do alone. Forgiveness is supernatural. Jesus, Lord, help me forgive